New Prospect, welcome to RTB 2021 for January 30th, 2021. Hope you're doing well this day. So our texts for today are Mark 2 and Romans 2 in the New Testament. We just began those two wonderful books. And then we have Esther chapter 7, and then we have Genesis chapter 31. So let's start with Genesis 31 again. So in Genesis 31, we have Jacob actually being told by God to leave and to go back to the promised land finally. And as he does, he doesn't tell Laban that he's leaving, kind of sneaks away. Laban chases him down and confronts him. And then Jacob proceeds to confront Laban for all the underhandedness that he had participated in regarding Jacob. Of course, Jacob had done a little bit himself, and so it's an interesting account. But again, it shows God's protection upon his patriarch, and it's setting us up ultimately, I think, for a major shift in Genesis 32 of the character of Jacob as he journeys back to confront his brother Esau and to get back to the promised land. Another interesting part of that story, by the way, is the existence of these household idols, which Rachel was carrying back, and you have to wonder, why would she have such things? Well, it could be idolatry, perhaps was. It could be that this was kind of a standard practice in the ancient Near East of having things that represented your ancestors. Obviously, not something that God would have been pleased with, I don't think. But again, it shows God still blessing sometimes despite his people. Moving on to Esther, we have the kind of the climax of the conflict between Haman and Mordecai. We have, of course, that second banquet that Esther had requested of the king, and at this banquet, this is after, of course, Haman had been forced to march Mordecai around. Ironically, this whole story is filled with irony, of course, and ultimately having to honor the person that he hates. And now they have this banquet, and this is where Esther springs the main reason for calling these banquets, and that is to identify the one who is threatening her people. And the king reacts as we would expect the king to react. He gets angry. He leaves the room for a time, and Haman starts begging for his life. He comes back in. He finds Haman on the couch with his wife, with his queen, and this makes him even angrier. And of course, ironically, Haman ends up being hung on the same gallows that he had created and built specifically for Mordecai. Once again, the tables are turned. So we have that's kind of the theme, I think, of the book of Esther, this turning of the tables, the irony that we see throughout the book. And yet it's an irony that's driven by a providential God working on behalf of his people. When we get to the book of Mark, we're in Mark chapter 2. And remember, and Mark is about revealing the identity of Jesus. And so we have in Mark 1 Jesus was teaching with this new authority and demonstrating that authority by some of his signs and wonders, and that continues in chapter 2. But that new authority has brought him into conflict with the scribes and Pharisees. And so, for instance, when Jesus heals the paralytic, he is revealing himself through that miraculous event to be one who has the authority to forgive sins. And of course, that would have been considered heretical on the part of the scribes and Pharisees. But again, what is Mark doing? He's revealing it to us, something of who Jesus is. And he is one that has come for the broken, the sinner. And the Son of Man came into this world to save sinners, right? And that's exactly what he's doing. And that we see that in this account. We also see something of his identity as a new David in the chapter 2, verses 23 through 28, and the Lord of the Sabbath. So these key parts of the Jewish faith are being fulfilled in Jesus. He is the one who has authority over this one day of the week, which perhaps more than anything else in Jewish life demonstrated the authority and the sovereignty of God over his people. And he's saying that he even has authority over that day. And some pretty pretty amazing claims that Jesus is making. And of course, Mark is step by step revealing to us something of who Jesus is. That brings us to the book of Romans. In Romans chapter 2, remember in Romans 1, you have that introduction of Paul. Then he starts speaking about the Gentiles at the end of chapter 1, but now he switches his focus in chapters 2 and going into chapter 3 to the Jews. And he identifies Jews, really their chief problem is not legalism, but hypocrisy. And what counts with God is not knowing the law, but doing it. And he speaks about how the Jews and the Gentiles are judged by the same standard. Jews by the law, Gentiles by the moral norms of the law. And ultimately, we all fall short, as we'll talk about in chapter 3. I think one of the things to pay attention to in chapter 2 and chapter 3 of Romans is how Paul talks about the effects of and the just the heinousness of sin. I think we, as a people, generally underestimate sin, and we don't estimate sin the way God does. We don't view it the way God does, and perhaps these two chapters will help us to do that as we examine them in the coming, or today and tomorrow. But I hope you'll enjoy these two chapters. Very challenging. Mark 2, or these 4 chapters, Mark 2 and Romans 2 and Esther, and also in Genesis 31. So on this day, January 30th, 2021, I hope you have a great rest of the day.